Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of KickSaga. My name is Matthew Rodella, and this is the show where we talk to folks who are looking to kickstart their first board game. And we're going to talk to them about what they've done to prepare. And then we'll have another interview where we circle back and see how things went after the campaign is over. And today I'm excited to have Galen McCown of Galen's Games on the show. How you doing, Galen?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thanks.
Awesome. And the game you're bringing to life, or you're hoping to bring to life on Kickstarter, is Super Snipers, which I've had the pleasure of playtesting a couple times now. And actually, you're one of the first folks who I came in contact with when I started on my own board game creation journey. So I've been following your progress from as soon as I was in this world, and you had already been working for quite a while on your game, and it was already looking really good by the time I learned about it. And so I'm super excited to follow the progress and see how it does. And I'm rooting for you. So why don't you tell the folks who are watching a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Super Snipers?
Sure, and thanks for that. Well, my name is Galen McCown. I'm a game designer out of Syracuse, New York. My day job, I'm a psychotherapist. I also been a musician for a very long time. That's my other major hobby, and one of the reasons I ran into Matt because I was interested in playtesting his game, which is of course about making a band, and I had some ideas for a game like that myself, but just never went through with it. So yeah, that's me. I'm a 9 to 5er. I'm a dad and with two daughters, 18 and 2.5. Crazy spread right there, and super excited about game design. So yeah, Super Snipers. I've been working on it for about 2.5 years. It was not my first game design. I started with a couple of other different games and learned a lot from that process. And I had originally, just quickly background, started Super Snipers for a Game Crafter contest that Gabe Barrett of Board Game Design Lab was running. That was how I connected with my artist, Was Young, who is absolutely incredible artist. I encourage everybody to check out the art when you get a chance. And he was volunteering to work with anyone who wanted to do art for the game, and so we connected that way, and that ended up being very fortuitous. Along the way, I entered the cardboard Edison contest with it because I felt it was far enough along, and I was really, really surprised, especially as like a fledgling designer, to be a finalist in that. And then I ended up being a semi-finalist in the contest that I actually built it for. So Super Snipers is a 1 to 2 player polyomino head-to-head sniper duel that has you going up against an opponent, and until one of you kills the other 3 times, you hide, you locate one another, and you target while you kind of isolate the innocents safely and get your target in the kill box. And all this is done with a polyomino puzzle, and the polyominoes are called focus. It has a simultaneous turns mode called dual mode. It has a quick draw mode, which is a semi-real-time mode. We can maybe talk more about that in a little bit. And it has 2 solo modes that it's going to ship with.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been really impressed with how you've been able to capture kind of the feeling of being a sniper locking in on a target using polyominoes, right? Because that's not something you think as a game about snipers. You think fast action. You don't think of a tile laying game, but you were able to kind of combine the puzzle nature of putting tiles of different shapes, polyominoes on a board, with kind of the fast pace, and kind of tense feeling of being a sniper. So maybe just briefly kind of walk through the design journey of the game, and how the idea started, and then kind of the steps you went through to change it, and the things you learned to get it to where it is now.
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to tell the condensed version of the,
I bet a lot
as
happened.
yeah, if you look in my Dropbox folders, it's 1.0 all the way through whatever 7.9 or something like that. So
Wow.
a
Yeah.
lot of
Nice.
versions. Originally, the original idea, which didn't last very long at all, is I really wanted to make a hidden movement game. Which there's
Mm,
actually like a small piece of that still in the game, but that was what I was really interested in doing. And I had this idea of originally I was thinking it would be kind of 3D buildings, and you had to kind of the way you would give each other information about where you were, you'd have to like kind of show something from your viewpoint. Like I can clearly see the purple building or something like that. It was, just a vague idea. It would have been a massive production. It was really hard to figure out. And so then I went from that to this idea of, okay, so what if we like made these transparent tiles or, sheets that would overlay one another as you're kind of making your shot, and you have to be able to, like, based on where you are from your head movement, show that you can see through the buildings in this way. And then from there I said, oh, why not polyominoes? And then the game really started becoming Super Snipers. It has evolved a lot. I'd say some of the major points of evolution. One, the hiding phase used to be much more, not complicated, but there used to be a lot more to it. There used to be 8 different locations. And behind
Wow.
each one, only one of them was you, but everything else was a bonus you would get if they guessed the wrong one. And also the location where they found you, like that and the ones around it would determine what polyominoes you got to work with. So, very different from what the design is now. And ultimately kind of scrap that in favor of something more simple. The other thing was the game used to be purely a bust mechanic. And not only a bus mechanic, but only one person would be taking the shot at a time, both things which have changed. And so, one person would find the other, and they would get to play on that map, and they would have to basically fit all their polyominoes without covering innocence, and then they would win, and it was okay. It wasn't a bad game. But, some of the feedback was, while I'm watching you do this, this is kind of boring for me. And it feels a
Yeah.
little weird that, I'm just trying not to hit innocence. I should be trying to hit the person. And
Mm.
so the game evolved into simultaneous turns, and it evolved into what you know now, which is, you are still doing that isolation. You're still trying to, zone off the innocence from the primary target, but you actually have to make the space to place your bullet and, frame them in a kill box, etc. I'd say the other major evolution, which was help from game designer Ben Moy, who was helped me out a lot in the early days of it, was just the way the actual game sits on the table. That purely symmetrical, thing where your board layout is reflected by your opponents, and the phases move towards you. I got a lot of help on that, and that really kind of changed the feel of the game and gives it its unique look. So that's a short version. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you did a good job of kind of cutting away some of the extra layers that were getting in the way of the core fun of the game, which you hear all the time. And but until you've designed a game, you don't really understand what it means, because you have all these cool ideas, you want to throw them all in the game, and you think they all have merit until you actually start play testing and realizing that there's this thing that's the core of the game, and you just want to cut out all the rest of the stuff and get to that core
It's
fun.
it's the best advice, and you have to be at a point to hear it and understand it.
Yeah.
Like that was
Yeah.
that, Super Snipers. Well, two things. One, that was the first game that I ever applied that philosophy to, and I applied it
Mm,
hardcore. I said, I'm always just going to chase the fun. I'm going to find what's fun.
mm,
I'm going to cut everything else, and that's how the game became what it is. I really did live by that. At the same time, I was kind of able to do that because I had gone through the process of designing a couple other games, and getting used to the feedback and getting used to Kill the Darlings. And in a sense, funnily enough, I just wasn't taking Super Snipers as seriously as some of those other games. So it didn't hurt
mm.
as much to just follow the fun. It was my experiment in doing that, and it ended up being the best game I designed. So yeah,
Nice.
totally.
That's
Yes.
that's cool. So was your plan always to kickstart this? Did you try to seek publishers? What was your thinking on the go publisher or go self-publish route?
Yeah. So early on, I was really discouraged for all good reasons to not pursue self publishing. It
Mm,
is, I mean, for anybody listening or who watches this or has seen the other interviews or reads my blog or anybody's blog, it is a ton of work. It is a big gamble. We see the successes. That's what we pay attention to, but there are a lot that even look like successes and they're not. You're not seeing everything
hmm.
behind the scenes. So
Right.
I don't mean to be too down. Obviously, I'm going this route. So originally, no. My thought was to pitch it, but I never really went very far with it. I entered it in there was a pitch project contest where I got a sell sheet done and got feedback on that, and I was somewhat hopeful with the Game Crafter contest. Gabe Barrett, the solo duo, that he might be interested in it, but I didn't like seek out publishers. I didn't make publisher meetings. I just kept developing the game. I hadn't quite felt it was ready, and at some point, and I bet you hear this from a lot of people, I just fell in love with my design, and I didn't want anybody messing with it. You know, I
Yeah.
could hear what would happen from the feedback. And when I say that, I don't want people to think like I'm ignoring the feedback. The thing was, some people love the theme. You said earlier, like, wow, you made a sniper theme out of a polyomino game. That's really unique. Other people are like, yeah, that's just not going to fly. And then, with the whole real time and simultaneous turns, the crowd is split 50-50 between people who say, well, first of all, a lot of people will tell you, and I do think it's normally good advice, um, pick the game mode, pick the way the game is supposed to be played, and put that face forward. That's what the game is. You have to let people know what the game is. And so if you have a mode that's simultaneous turns and you have real time, you have to pick one of them. And I heard that a lot, but I'd also hear, and it should be the real time mode, and it should be the simultaneous turns mode. And I'm like, okay, but I could get all of
Right.
you. And certainly could talk more about that if we wanted to. But I fell in love with my vision, and I don't know. I became really interested in what it would be like to kickstart a game. The idea of kind of like, having a Galen's games. I've decided to pursue it. I'm able to do it. You unfortunately need to have some extra spending money to do something like this. It's really hard to pull off on a shoestring budget. And so I'm just at a point in my life where I could do this as an experiment. And if it failed, it won't be the end of the world for me. But yeah, so.
Now, you've been open about this on the blogs that you write at Galen Games, but for the folks watching, if you wouldn't mind, how much have you invested of your own money into this game up to this point?
Sure. So at this point, and not every one of these bills is paid, but they will be. It's at around $22,000 right now, and that's probably a middle of the road number that
Sure.
you'll hear for people that do this.
Yeah, because you've got a game that is what would you call it, like medium light kind
Yep.
of weight, where we're not talking about lots of plastic components or minis or anything like that. It's polyominoes. It's dual layer player boards and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's a good kind of middle of the road number for folks to be expecting to invest, because it is right. You're investing in your vision, and you're starting a company, and you're starting a brand, and building a product, and all of that stuff costs time and money. And so yeah, and it sounds like you really believe in that vision, and
Hmm.
you hear the stories all the time about folks who are successful who heard no, or who heard this isn't going to work all the time, but they stuck to their vision. And it's a gamble. And
It is a gamble.
I for one think you're making the right move, because this game uniquely, I think, straddles that line between where it can be a real time game, and folks who like real time games would have a blast with it. But folks like me get super stressed out with real time games and like to kind of think about things. That other mode is it's so close. Like both modes play so close to each other that I don't think the game's losing anything when you play it with non real time, other than maybe just you're not stressing not stressing out as
Yeah,
much.
I appreciate that. I agree with you. I wrote a bit more about this on the blog, but quickly, my goals with making that decision was that, I mean, number one, that there was like zero difference in the game except for one small thing, right? Like you learn the game based on the simultaneous turns, and then I tell you, okay, the only difference is now you flip a 10-second timer, you take your turn. When you're done with your turn and that 10 seconds is up, you can take your next turn instead of waiting for your opponent. That's literally the only difference between the two modes. So
Yeah,
having played the game right away if you would like that or not.
right.
It's just apparent. So yeah.
Yeah, love it. And honestly, I think real most real time games would serve their users and be more accessible if they offered that type of non real time mode as well. Because that's one of those types of games that you either love it or you don't love it as much. And so having those two modes, I think, just can do nothing but serve your
Yeah.
audience.
And you either need a very simple game that, you're going to be able to play real time and well right away, or you're
Mhm.
going to need that simultaneous turns mode to learn how to play it anyways. A lot
Totally.
of people pointed me to Captain Sonar as an example of a game that does this well, and that people may prefer playing either way. So it's fine. It's not just the learning mode. It's not the lesser of the two modes. It just may be the way you prefer to play.
Yeah, that's good, and that's good to have an example of it being done before, so you can
Always,
see
yeah.
how how it's done. Cool. So let's kind of break down some of the things you have invested in. So what are some of the first things that you know had to invest real money in. I'm assuming probably something like the illustrations or something like that. And could talk about kind of the approach of how you found people to work with at various stages.
Sure, you'll probably help me remember the whole list here, but yeah, I think at the point that I decided I was going to self-publish, one of the first things I did was I purchased the art off Wah that he had already done. We had come up with a number on that, and I purchased it right away, and we started to develop the vision of where it would be going, and what other kind of art would be needed. So it was, I didn't do that thing that they warn you against, pay for the art and then change your game. I mean, I did change the game a bunch, but not in ways. The art was useful. A lot of it we have very much upgraded since that original version too. He's fantastic. So yeah, art's a major expense, probably the biggest one, and still I'm getting a great deal on it, and it's absolutely worthwhile. You need to have that stunning art for everybody to do. Starting a business isn't free. In New York State, there's just a million little fees that you got to do. I'd say that
Yeah.
clocked in a little over $500 all said and done just to have an LLC, and there's some ongoing numbers that go with that, and there's also just, I mean, with all this, there's time, and I have not put a number on my time because it would make me cry, but
Right.
there's so much of that. Other things that I've been invested in, the Kickstarter video was a pretty big investment. I went with Ori Kagan with that, who probably a lot of folks who follow
Yeah.
or designers know his name, and he's done a lot of the huge videos. I encourage you to watch the Super Snipers one. He did a just killer job
Oh,
on
it's
that.
so good. So good.
And that was $5,000, so that was not cheap. It's so that was a challenging one. Marketing, actually, marketing is probably the biggest of all the expenses. To be honest, that might just trump art or be very close.
Interesting. What kind of stuff have you invested in for the marketing?
So a few different things. I've been working with crowdfunding nerds. I decided, I did a consultation with them, and I won't tell you their whole kind of platform. That's easy enough to look at. They've got a great group on Facebook you can check out. And so, the kind of minimum recommendations are, 2 months pre-campaign Facebook ads spend at, $10 a day every day, for those 2 months. But I had started out from a place of weakness in terms of just the number of followers I have. I think I've got pretty good relationship with the game design community, but those aren't always the people that buy the games. I don't, I had a very small email list. I had a very small Facebook following. I had my socials in line, and I needed to make a much bigger move if I was going to get to the Kickstarter. So I did 3 months of pre-marketing, and basically, right, $10 a day. So that's 300. No, I'm sorry. It was $20 a day. So that's 600 a month. And then they manage the ads on top of that, which is, in my mind, totally worth paying for. I am not a marketer. I'm learning every day, like everything in game design. I've learned marketing 101. I've learned graphic design 101. I've learned all the 101s, but nothing good enough
Totally.
other than the game design part for Kickstarter. So they'll manage the ads, they'll watch what's working, what isn't, they'll do the A/B test, they'll work with you. Like, that's been great. But the management itself, 600 too. So that's, 1,200 for 3 months running. And I did up the ad spend a little bit in the middle there to 30 a day to try to really pump up those email numbers. So,
Have
so
you
I did
felt
that.
that's been a worthy investment so far?
I'll tell you next week. No, yeah.
Right?
I mean, so, we've talked a couple times about the blog, but I've for 10 weeks, I have to write another one tomorrow, but one of the things I've been doing that I thought would be interesting, and I hope it is for people, is I've been tracking the numbers. I started with where I was at with everything, and then you'll see, what I invested in and how, and what my growth was like. Right. And it definitely did what it was supposed to do in terms of, getting me those email numbers and getting people to that pre-launch page. And then through those emails, I'm able to, build up my followings on the, the Facebooks or the, Discords or whatever. So I would say it's been effective. It hasn't quite delivered. I was hoping to land next week at like 1,500 emails and, 800 followers would have been like my ideal. Right now, a week away, I am at about 850 emails, and I am at 594 followers, just about to break 600. So there's still room to grow, but I'm probably not going to be exactly where I wanted to be. But yeah, so that's them. I besides them, I've tried out a lot of other little things along the way for advertising. And first of all, I got previewers and reviewers somewhat fit in that category, and I did some paid for that, especially the people who do the how to play videos. You almost always pay for that, and so there was certainly some money that went there. Shipping isn't free. If I'm trying to hit about 3 reviewers with each of my 9 prototypes, and that's a minimum of $14 a time a piece every time I do that. So that adds up. I'm doing an event with Board Game Revolution, a launch day event. So I spent some money on that, as well as email advertising for them. That was like $300. And then I've kind of, nickel and dimed other places where I've got banners up with different
Right.
groups. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good strategy to try to be everywhere or as many places as you can be when you launch, because that's something that even subconsciously kind of like affects me when I go to Board Game Geek, when I go to a Facebook group, when I go here and I go there, and I keep seeing the same game over and over again, and I'm like, oh, I need to check that game out. It's even subconscious; you don't even think about it, and so I like the idea of just trying to be in as many places as you can that you can afford, and that makes sense for you.
I
Um,
think I think marketers will tell you that you're correct. Like people usually see it. Well, I think the magic number is 7 times before they act on it, or something like that. And it's
right.
funny because I do it. I do it all the time, and I feel bad. I'm like, this is not how I want my consumers. This is how I act. Like, oh yeah, cool. I should check that game. Or the thing that always happens is I'll see it on my phone and I'll click and I'll look and I'll go to notify me on launch and like, oh, you need my Kickstarter sign and I don't have that on my phone. Oh, maybe I'll see it when I'm on my computer again. Like, you really have to hit people a lot of times. Yeah,
Yep, exactly.
especially when they're like you or I. Yeah. So
Totally. Yeah. Cool. Uh, and really quick, so when you're just curious about the Facebook ads and those, and even the banner ads and stuff, where are you sending the people when they click on those various
yeah.
advertisements?
So I'm uh, two different answers to that. I think the crowdfunding nerds, they help build my landing page as well. So the idea is send people to the landing page where they sign up and they get on your email, and then you hit them with the email and send them the link to the Kickstarter pre-launch or all of your groups and things like that. So there's a strategy there. So primarily the landing page. At this point in the campaign, most of my banners are going directly to the pre-launch. The emails would be nice, but I don't want to put an extra step in between people. I want to make sure that they're getting
That makes
notified.
sense.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Kickstarter page, how's that going? Is it done? Are you still working on it? And what was your approach to putting that together?
Yeah, close is the answer to that. And also, I got to give the vast majority of the credit. I am so lucky to have Was Young working with me. He's an artist. He's a game designer, a really good one, and a graphic
Hmm,
designer. And he is very good and very quick. And if I needed to have someone else doing this part, or if I needed to do this myself, as opposed to just the all-in-one, I'm talking to him about everything, it would have been a lot harder. I would have needed to start things a lot sooner. So it's going well. We've got most of the graphics done. I think I still got some time to think about it, but I think I've solidified my pledge levels. I figured out the shipping. That's a trip figuring all that stuff out.
I bet.
And yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it there's just gambles within gambles when you're doing this. It's hard to explain. It's not hard to explain. There are so many little gambles you're doing along the way. Like you're investing in this Kickstarter that may or may not work. Your funding goal is a gamble. Your what you quote for your shipping prices is a gamble. you know, Doing add-ons, doing deluxe pledges, all those things are different levels of gamble that you are making within one larger gamble. And so,
And
yeah,
explain to folks watching who might not understand how the shipping prices work. Why is it a gamble to quote something now? How can that change? What goes into kind of coming up with that number now and so forth?
Sure. So I can tell you, certainly my process. So I'm going to work with Bridge Distributing, and they're great. I've had a really good communication with Matt McCown, is the guy I've been talking back and forth with, and so he will send you, based on the weight of your game, the weight and the size of your game, he will send you a shipping list that breaks down. First of all, within the U.S., the U.S. is 7 different regions, and then by the world, how much it'll cost to ship there, and how much the packaging and fulfillment fees will be. And so the U.S. is a good example. I'm choosing, like a lot of creators do, to have a simple estimate for what it costs to ship you the game in the United States. Right. The fact is, it costs 7 different amounts depending on where you were at.
Mm.
So you you have to pick a number that, first of all, looks good. Maybe adds up to a nice even number. I don't know how important that is to people or not. You have to pick a number that looks good, and you have to understand that with some people you'll be losing with that number, and with other people you'll be making a little bit of profit on that number, and you have to
Interesting.
stick with it. I am very lucky that my game is the right size, that it can do the USPS priority mail, which is a flat rate. So things like Alaska and Hawaii won't mess me up. It won't all of a sudden be $80 instead of 15, or whatever. And then when
Right.
you get to the worldwide, the other thing is, a lot of those shipping costs are in reality more than the game, and I got to decide, like, who's going to do that. So
Yeah.
so you decide, in a sense, you decide where to take a hit. You decide upfront with your game cost how much of your fulfillment cost you want to absorb, or how much you want to be able to absorb some of the shipping cost to make that number palatable for people. So there's a lot of decisions that go into it.
Yeah. Totally.
That I joked, I was at a convention recently, and it was really cool. They let me sit on the panel, which was fun. But I joked, like, I'm just praying, not too many people from Montana order my game, or my whole plan is, screwed.
Right.
But
That's
I
funny.
kid,
Can
Montana,
you
please order.
please, Montana? You can buy it. It's all right.
Yeah.
Um, so, have you done much like in-person marketing, conventions, that kind of thing?
Not a ton. The pandemic, combination of the pandemic and having a young kid has made it
Yep.
really difficult during most of the development cycle. I've gone to the local convention, QSCon, for 2 years, and I demoed both times. This last time, I actually, purchased table space, had, professional signage, and made a whole event out of it. So I did do that. I locally get a lot of in person, and then of course, Tabletop Simulator has been my
Mm,
way to introduce this to people around the
nice.
world, as well as exposure through the contest. But that's one part, one element when we look back on this whole thing, see how it did. That'll be the thing I can't really determine, is how much of a difference it would have been made to really have a convention presence. But that's another huge investment there. They are not cheap to attend.
Totally.
Uh, yeah, yeah,
Totally. Yeah. Who's to say, right? I mean, it's nice at least that nowadays we have other options than just traveling around the country going to
sure,
conventions. You can, be successful with launching a game without needing to do that, and so that's really cool. And who's to say if that would have, the ROI of that would have made a huge difference. But it sounds like you're covering all the bases you can in the online world.
yeah.
Now,
I
sort of
did
numbers.
quickly. Oh,
Yep.
sorry, just quickly. I did also. I used the Indie Gamers Alliance, which I'm sure a lot of designers are members of. I did use them to show at Gen Con, so I did
Oh,
have
cool.
somewhat of a
Nice.
presence there, so that was cool. But,
Yeah. So the Indie Gamers Alliance, like, had your game on their at their booth, kind of
yeah. Yep.
thing.
Yeah, you can
Show off.
pay, you can send over some copies, and you can pay to have, and pick your time slots to have them just kind of not do a full demo, but have it out, have an overview, hand people things, run promotions, stuff like that. So that was a nice option, since I wasn't able to go in person.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great resource. I'll have a link to that in the show notes as
Cool.
well. Um, cool. So let's dive into the numbers that we have 1 week out from your launch on Kickstarter. If you've seen the show before, we look for what your numbers are for the Kickstarter followers, your email list, any social media presence that you have. Any
Okay.
numbers that you care to share?
Sure. So, well, I will. Let me dig up the last blog because I actually just track all this, and I can tell you
There you
really
go.
quick.
Perfect.
It makes it easier. So hopefully they'll all be higher than this now because it's a week away. But I will at least take you where I was last week. Some things I'll know the update. So I'll start
Cool.
off. The pre-followers are at. Let me refresh, and that is at 594 currently on the page, which is not
Nice.
bad. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
that's healthy. Yep.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And then okay, so
People have
let's see.
funded with less.
And I know the email was at 850 when I checked a little bit ago. All right,
Cool.
so yeah, Facebook page for Super Snipers. I am at 204 followers there. Um, this is an interesting learning point for anybody doing this too. There's a little bit of a debate out there whether you're supposed to have a public group or a private group, and I as far as I can tell nowadays, people say public group, but back when I was learning this, I heard private. So I have I
Yeah.
have two different Facebook groups for Super Snipers because I did start with a
Interesting.
private, and I was advised that it's really smart to have a public group as well. So I kind of use my private group as my quote unquote focus group, which is a little bit of an inside joke if you know the game because the polyominoes are called focus. And then I
Yes.
have a public. So public groups was at 109 last week, private at 68. Not huge, but not bad. Discord, I got about 60 people in there. I've got 146 subscribers on TTS, which honestly, that's a pretty good number for TTS. I'm
Wow.
happy with
Yeah.
that. And then my main Galen's Games Facebook page is at 195 followers. So none of those are crazy numbers. None of those are terrible. That's
Yeah, I'm curious about the TTS numbers. How do you find people on TTS to follow your game,
it's a good question,
or
man.
do
I'm not sure that
you?
I did it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't. I mean, I've been, I've been running play tests, as pretty regularly. Certainly not as much as some people do. I did T Berserker, the guys who run Tabletop Simulator. In their Discord, you do have an ability to kind of like spotlight your game or ask for your game to be spotlighted. And I got into one of
Okay.
those summer series, and I put it up there. I share the link all the time when people ask, can I try this game out or things like that. And so
Gotcha.
it apparently has caught on a bit. I've been surprised. There's even been games where I didn't really push it at all, where my Infiltrators, my first game that I ever designed, solo game that is still on TTS. I'll get back to it one of these days. But that one actually just amassed quite a number of people, not quite this many, but it's pretty close to 100, and actually a lot of interaction on that page with comments and questions. And I didn't do anything. It just kind of did it
Hmm.
by itself. That seems to be
Cool.
pretty rare. There's, needle in a
Yeah.
haystack. There's so much stuff on TTS, but
Yeah. Well, that's a good sign, right? That
yeah,
your game kind of broke through the noise a little bit and
yeah,
got
it
people to
is
follow.
it's fun to play on TTS too. I think I mean
Yeah.
everything's okay to play on TTS, but I had some scripting done, and it really it feels like a pretty arcadey fun way to play it. It's not that, most people
Totally.
say I'd rather just play the physical version, which I hope everybody does, but it's a nice alternative when you can.
Yeah. You got a lot of fun scripting in there that makes it an event
Yeah,
for sure to
all
play the
courtesy
game.
of Alexi Minardo. So yeah, he's great at what he does.
Yeah. Good stuff. Cool. So, what are your plans for during the campaign? Any kind of plans to help keep the excitement going? What are you thinking about doing after you hit the launch button?
Sure. So I'll definitely answer that. I will preface it by saying anybody who's listening to this and thinking of launching your own campaign, you really got to plan for this part, man. It's there's this. Have you ever heard? I won't say it exactly right. Yeah, I know you're a musician as well. There's this thing that you hear in the music industry. You have your whole life to write your first album, and then you have 6 months to write your second album. Right? Like you.
Yeah,
In other
yeah,
words, you can wait forever to press that launch button, but once you do, it's 30 days, and you better have stuff planned.
yeah. There's no going
So
back.
no,
That's
you
the
got
point of no
so have a
return.
plan. So for
Yeah.
me, a couple things. I've staggered out the reviews and previews so that more will be dropping as it happens. I've got I believe another podcast lined up during that. I've got the Game Boy Geek is going to do a live playthrough about a week after launch. So people will be able to watch that. So, just trying to keep, again, myself in that cycle. Obviously going to continue to do advertising. I haven't totally made my decision whether I'm sticking with Crowdfunding Nerds for that or doing something else. I was originally thinking strongly about BackerKit, but I've backed off that notion a little bit. I'm not sure that's what I need to do. So that'll be it. And then in terms of like fun, engaging things to do, I got two things that I'm working really hard to pull off in time. One, I want to have a tournament, probably a 16-person elimination tournament, where folks in TTS will learn the game. And every round you have to pick a different sniper than you did the one before. And
nice.
And with the idea that at the end, the winner will get this, extra special prize package of stuff that's not really available anywhere. I'm thinking of making an upgrade kit for the polyominoes, like an acrylic set, just make it at the Game Crafter and like ship it individually to them. It's an upgrade too far for the actual Kickstarter. And if I ever come back and do expansions or do a second print run, I'll consider it. Yeah, so something like that, maybe some signed art prints. I don't know. I'll come up with something cool for the prize, but there's going to be that contest. I'm getting some help with running that from some folks in my community, which I'm so appreciative of. It's so hard to do this alone, and you don't do it alone, right? Like
you can't. It's impossible.
It's impossible. I don't have a co-designer. I don't have anybody else in Galen's games, but I'm absolutely not doing this alone, right? Totally. And even the people who absolutely look like they are, their partner is watching the kids. Somebody's doing something to allow you to do this. Like it's really not a one-man show, one person.
Yeah, every successful campaign I've seen, there's always a team, whether it's in the company or just people that they hired or volunteered to help, but there's always a group of people behind a game. It's never just one person. And I think part of the success is, trying, being a good steward of finding the right people to come together to help you.
Amen.
So kudos to as far as you've come. And, it looks like you've got all your ducks in a row to have this be a success. So,
I hope so.
We will look forward to following up with you in about a month or so to see how it goes. If folks listening to this now want to follow along or learn more or back, where can they go to find out more about this game?
So you can go to www.galensgames.com, and I should have links to everything there. I also have a link tree at Galen's Game Designs, which will link at everything. I can't remember the entire Kickstarter pre-launch code, but maybe we can throw that in the notes.
I'll have that link.
You search for it on Kickstarter, Super Snipers. You should be able to find it pretty quickly. You can find me on BGG or Facebook or pretty much anywhere you want to look.
Excellent. Well, good luck, my friend. I will be keeping close tabs on the campaign, and here's to your success, and we'll follow up with you soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
All right. And thank you guys for watching this episode of KickSaga. If you want to see what happened after this campaign and learn all of Galen's lessons learned after the fact, make sure you hit subscribe below this video and you click that bell icon to get notified when we release new videos. Until next time, see you then. Bye.